Okay, we are back. Another episode of Mandalorian has come and gone. We are on episode 3 now. Ben, how you doing? And how
I'm
did you
good.
like the
I'm good.
episode?
Uh, listen, I,
That
I
doesn't
I had to
sound good.
watch. No, 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 no. Okay, it's not as bad as it sounds. So I had to watch this episode twice. I watched it the first time I watched it. I got a little bit frustrated by its structure because this is another episode where we're kind of stepping away, similar to what they did with Boba Fett, with cutting away and going to it's 2 episodes of Mando. This episode starts off, focus on Din and Bo, and then it pivots away for like 40 minutes to a completely separate New Republic story,
That's right.
and I wasn't expecting that, and it caught me off guard, and it the first time around that I watched it, it made me kind of not enjoy the episode maybe as much as I could have. So I
Yeah.
decided the next day I went back and gave it a fair shot, knowing what I was getting into. And I still don't love the episode, but I enjoyed it quite a bit more than that first watch.
I was totally thrown off guard. Um, when I actually clicked on the episode, I saw it was an hour. I was to the moon. I
I got so
was
excited. I'm like, oh my God, a full hour.
an hour. So, in terms of structure, I don't know why they chose to do what they did. We got, yeah, like you said, about a 40-minute, 10-minute opener, 10-minute closer with Din and Bo-Katan. It being about 40 minutes worth of screen time for a New Republic storyline. I don't know why they didn't choose to maybe throw 5-10 minutes in each episode.
Well, yeah, go back and forth, right? I mean, that's how it's almost like this show is afraid to tell multiple storylines at once. So look at any other show. Look at Game of Thrones. You've got episodes that focus on 4, 5, 6 stories at once, and they break them up. You might get 5 minutes of one, cut away, you get 10 minutes of the other. I think there were better ways that they could have spliced this in throughout the season to give it a more natural feeling. This
Yeah.
felt like they kind of bookmarked Mando. They're like, okay, well, they're gonna fly off. Let's get to something else in the meantime.
Yeah, it didn't really make sense from a storytelling perspective, especially it being, trying to tell a cohesive story over the course of the season. We've already met these characters before. We've already met Dr. Pershing. We've already met her. She goes by referred to G68, her code name in this episode. But we've met these characters before in previous seasons when they were working with the Empire. Now we're seeing them part of a rehabilitation program being reintegrated into the New Republic. But I don't, already having met these characters, could have just thrown them in 5 minutes in episode 1, 5 minutes in episode 2. And then already we would have felt a lot more comfortable having seen these characters on screen as opposed to getting a full episode with them.
Absolutely agreed. Yeah, just there were better ways to structure it. Now, having said that, and when I did go back for my second watch, it's a cool little story on its own. I did enjoy it. I liked seeing, so often when we see Coruscant, it's an establishing shot, or you're at the Jedi Temple, or the Senate. So it was nice seeing some of the other areas, the street level, and you've got food vendors and street performers and stuff like that. So it is cool seeing that side of the New Republic and this this peaceful community that they've built up. Which is maybe not so peaceful. We'll get to that.
Yeah, like you said, this is a lot of Coruscant. We haven't seen too much of this. So from a Star Wars perspective, from the universe expanding perspective, this is a lot of Coruscant that we haven't seen before, which is great. Coruscant is supposed to be the capital of the universe, and we really don't get too much action in Coruscant. So it was good to see, different perspectives, different vantage points of the city, as well as a lot of information actually that they've kind of fed to us on throughout the episode. So it was a very Coruscant lore heavy episode if you paid attention, right?
Yeah.
So on that note, great episode. I will add, this may have something, before we get into the kind of breakdown. I feel like this may have something to do with that New Republic series being canned.
And that's what it felt like to me. And this is kind of my fear with where this episode went, is are they trying to shoehorn in a New Republic show into a different show? Like they kind of like what they did with The Mandalorian with Book of Boba Fett. It's like, oh, we don't have our own outlet, our own full outlet to tell this New Republic story. Where can we put this? Can we put this into The Mandalorian? And I'm really hoping that it does play into the season and it's not just kind of a one-off standalone thing.
I hope that is the case, that this storyline does tie in. I mean, Star Wars fans are hungry always. So if they chose to make a New Republic version, which is the opposite of what we got in Andor, I would be all for it.
Of course, yeah, I would watch that. Tell it as its own show. It's interesting. It's really interesting stuff, and there's a lot of meat there. There's a lot of stuff that they could delve into. They could do an 8, a 10, a 12 episode season and have enough to fill it out.
Let's dig into this. Let's dig into this 40 minutes in between, and then we can talk about the book ending portion of it. So we get this intro to Dr. Pershing. He's being reintegrated into the new society, which is the New Republic, and it starts off with him making a speech to like a Senate situation, talking about his scientific background in cloning. And cloning has been a massive part of the Star Wars universe for a very long time. So this is the very first time that we're getting that kind of reintegration, that post Return of the Jedi, at least until the new trilogy happened. So it's breaking the gap. And then he after his conversation, he is going back to his what they referred to as the amnesty house, which is the house that all of these reintegrated soldiers from the Empire kind of live at. And he is introduced to a handful of them, one of them being a woman named G68, who we used to work for Moff Gideon, and we saw her work for Moff Gideon in the previous seasons. And a lot happened in that conversation.
Absolutely. I mean, you've got these two characters who have, we essentially know as villains of the series to a degree. And, we're getting to see them reintegrated, trying to become part of the New Republic and trying to become, regular upstanding citizens. And, when they first meet in that scene, he's taken aback. He says I didn't expect to see somebody from Moff Gideon's ship here. So there's already kind of a level of, does he trust her? Does he believe that she's been reintegrated? So it's an interesting setup, and it sets up an interesting dynamic between the two of them.
Yeah. And then one other thing that was mentioned, again, tons was mentioned in this one scene. Towards the end of the conversation, he was asked if there was anything he misses from the Empire, working in the Empire, and he immediately gets defensive and says, "No, I don't miss working for the Empire." And the guy's like, relax, calm down. I didn't mean it like that. Obviously, we're all happy about the Empire being collapsed, but I mean something more personal. And he mentioned there were these travel biscuits that he enjoyed. And again, that comes back over the next couple of scenes. The scene immediately following that is him in his bedroom, and he's listening to a recording on an iPad or a tablet of some sort, and they knock on the door, and he gets delivered anonymously a box of these travel biscuits. Then he goes on his course on to...
There's a little is that when she gives him the tour? Yeah, the whole city's like this giant, or the whole planet says a giant city. You don't really think of it as anything else. And then we get that really cool scene of, you see this big rock.
Yeah.
Like, what is that? And it's like, oh, that's the tallest mountain on the planet. And it's like the city's been built up so high that you just see like the very top of this mountain, which is really cool to see, some actual life, some natural structure on on this giant city.
Yeah, yeah. It's the one of the only aspects of the city that is that shows the natural terrain. And like you said, the perspective, the fact that you can it's giving you a scale of how high up Coruscant is in the sky, and the fact that you can't really fly down. So it definitely gives us a lot more in-depth perspective on living on Coruscant and what it could be like. Things start getting interesting in that conversation while they're walking around Coruscant, because it starts off friendly.
Not everything's as it seems. But it sets up the trust that was needed. I don't know if it was, even though it was 40 minutes, I don't know if 40 minutes was quite long enough for me to buy that he would trust her. But for the character, it did a good job of setting up, okay, maybe she is friendly. Maybe, I do have a friend. I have somebody, in this rehabilitation program that I can trust, which leads into where the episode goes next.
Yeah, I agree with that. To buy the trust, she also seems like the only person that is on his side, at least at the moment. And it seems to take place over quite a number of days.
Yep.
And we get that through his office visits. We get that over the next couple of scenes as he sees what seems to be like some robotic therapist.
Those scenes I thought were fantastic. That felt like something out of more like the Blade Runner universe in Star Wars. And I thought that was so cool. Just the interviews with that robot, the first time around when it's asking him, do you have any ill will against the New Republic, or, negative thoughts? And he says no so quickly in that first interview. And then when we come back to it a little bit later, you see that his perspective starting to shift.
Yeah. And like you said, that trust seems to waver very quickly, because over just 2 to 3 scenes, we start seeing that trust waver. And the scene in between the therapy sessions is him eating the biscuits at his office, sitting at his desk. Yeah, this is some interesting exchange, some interesting writing in this episode. When it comes to these two characters, and again, these are all used as trust devices from G68 to Dr. Pershing, and she obviously eventually persuades him to go through with this idea that she had, which is to continue with the cloning process behind the New Republic's back. And
you kind of feel bad for him too, because he's coming from a place where, when he is giving his whatever the New Republic's version of a TED Talk is at the beginning, you can tell that he's passionate and that he believes that there is a lot of good to be found in the cloning program. But that's a big no-no in the New Republic. So he's coming from a place where I think he believes that there is truly good in this program, and she's coming from a place of trying to find a rat. Like she's trying to kind of help the New Republic sniff out this rat. And I did think it was interesting that he's not doing this. He's not going about it in a malicious way. He is trying to do what's best for the New Republic, but the New Republic and Kane, I think, is what we find out her name is later in the episode. They don't see it that way.
Yeah, I do think there's a couple aspects to the character. One is a little bit of desperation when it comes to his scientific career. As a scientist, it probably hit him that he's now like this desk jockey, and he's just a number. He's not important. It definitely hit him, his ego as a scientist. And then on top of that, he truly believes that the cloning process could be used for good. So I think those compounded with G68 offering her help and slowly feeding him this information that she can help him, and then he can move forward with it. Obviously ends to the result at the end where they are on the run. and trying to go on this secret mission to continue his cloning process. There is a really cool sequence when we get to the final destination, which is the showcase of this massive Star Destroyer.
Oh my God. Best shot in the episode. That was fantastic. The two of them walking up and you just see the scale of this decommissioned Star Destroyer, and it's got, you know, panels. It's starting to be torn apart and its panels missing, and that was a great shot.
Yeah, it really was. It really was. She had mentioned earlier that there is most likely cloning devices and mechanics in the Star Destroyer that he can use. And yeah, the scene doesn't end well. Obviously, it ends in a situation where we kind of, not that we all saw it. I didn't really know who to trust and who was, because again, like you said earlier, they were both at one point evil.
Yeah.
Right. They were both bad. They were both working for the Empire. So we didn't know who would backstab who. But yes, as it got closer and closer to the end of the reveal, it made sense that she turned her back on him and yeah, turned him over to the New Republic. And we don't know what's going to happen in the future episodes, if they're going to turn back to this and we're going to showcase why she did it.
And who knows who she's working for within the New Republic as well, right? Because we're at the stage right now in, you know, the Star Wars universe where we've got the New Republic, but that's going to shift to get into like the New Order stuff and what we see in the sequel trilogy. So it'll be interesting to see if this does kind of play into that, and we get a little bit more about the moral gray area that the New Republic is operating within.
Yeah, we definitely got a lot of gray areas in this episode. There were borderline Empire, you know.
Absolutely. They advertise it as this like utopia, but then you've got like, you know, the mind flare towards the end of Pershing's story, and he's like, no, like you're not supposed to use this. They're saying, oh, at lower voltages it can be quite effective. It's like, this is dystopian at this point.
Yeah, exactly. They're basically, all they did was take all of the Empire mechanics, technology, and just basically rebrand it, and that's pretty much it. And just rebrand it as New Republic stuff.
Yeah,
it's interesting time in the Star Wars universe that we haven't had explored.
Did you catch the nice little Admiral Akbar reference at the end when he's being tortured?
Yeah, and he said she said he trapped me. He didn't. She
she's like, oh, she set me up. It was a trap. And then you see the Mon Calamari kind of just look off to the side.
Yeah, that was
I got a good laugh out of that. That was well placed. I guess back to the Mandalorian part of the Mandalorian.
Yeah, the actual Mandalorian. So the episode opens up right where we left off, the minds of Mandalore, and Din finally comes to after being rescued by Bo-Katan. And there's a moment there where Bo-Katan asks him if he saw anything down there, and he says no, and she just chooses not to disclose any information from seeing the mythosaur, which is an interesting choice, but I think it's just information that she chose to keep to herself, you know, for her own personal gain, as a leader of Mandalore at one point. Then after that scene, they decide to leave and go back to Bo-Katan's planet, and there is an amazing planetary battle between them and TIE fighters. Yeah.
Oh, so cool. That was great. Nice little dogfight, flying in and out of the canyons. That was an exciting little sequence. Definitely a highlight of the episode for me.
Yeah, they managed to. There are a few things worked in their favor. One, it being Bo-Katan's planet. She did mention, "I know these mountains," so she knew how to fly in and out, and they worked really well together. in communicating and fighting together to take all the ties. But then later on we see a bunch more come by, totally outnumbered. Yeah, a ton. They were totally outnumbered, and they bomb Bo-Katan's house, her castle, and that's when the title sequence shows up, and they leave us on a cliffhanger in the opening sequence of the episode, only a few minutes in, and then transport us to Coruscant for the New Republic storyline.
Yeah, it's going to be interesting now, because at this point, Bo she's seen the mythosaur. She's now without a home, so it'll be interesting to see where her character finds, a place that she can call home, and whether or not she finds, a place of acceptance within Din's creed and his clan.
Yeah, I don't think she was expecting
such a warm welcome.
Yeah,
she was shocked. She was kind of, he went on this quest to become redeemed. She was kind of redeemed by default because she dove into the waters to save him. So
yeah,
and she hadn't taken off her helmet since.
Yeah, she definitely didn't think that they would welcome her, but the armorer mentioned, said, oh, okay, well, you went in the water too, so that means you're redeemed as well. Okay. And it did seem like, even with the helmet on, that with her no response, that she was semi-shocked at the response.
Stunned, yeah. And they're all coming up, they're welcoming her, they're shaking her hand, putting their hands on her shoulder. It'll be interesting. It's like, because she's been kind of this lone wolf for a little while now, if she feels, a sense of belonging within this clan.
Yeah. Will she use the mythosaur information to her advantage in some way? I mean, she could always, at this point, maybe even request a duel with Din to take the saber, and now she has control of the saber, and she knows that a mythosaur exists down below.
At this point, she's probably, at least for me, I think, the most interesting character in this show. There's just a lot that they could do with her, a lot that they could do with her character. We don't know 100% what she's thinking at any given time, so I'm excited to see where they go with her.
Hey, so thank you very much, everyone, for checking out episode 3 spoiler chat with Ben and I. We will be back for episode 4. Episode 4 lands this Wednesday, and we will see you all soon. Ben, thank you for joining me.
Yeah, thanks, Stefano. We'll see you guys next week.
Cheers.